Mr. Holloway, according to our records, you've been a member since 1981. Derek went silent. He was calling to correct a billing error, a renewal invoice he shouldn't have received. He'd canceled his country club membership 14 months ago. Standard procedure. No complications. But the woman on the phone wasn't joking. That's impossible, Derek said. I joined in 2014. I canceled in 2016. More typing. A long pause. Sir, I'm showing continuous membership since April 1981. No cancellations on file. Derek felt his pulse quicken. I wasn't alive in 1981. Could you come to the club this afternoon? The director would like to speak with you in person. When Derek arrived, they showed him the records. 36 years of membership under his name. Monthly dues paid through accounts he'd never opened. Guest logs spanning decades, all signed Derek Holloway in handwriting that looked disturbingly like his own. But here's what broke reality. The membership went dormant on January 15th, 2016, 3 days before Derek submitted his cancellation forms. The club's membership director looked pale. We thought it was a system glitch. But then we found this. He slid a newspaper clipping across the desk. Local man missing after disappearance. Riley Holloway, 37. Last seen leaving Pinehurst Country Club on January 15th, 2016. Riley Holloway. Derek's cousin. A cousin he'd never known existed. Riley had been using Derek's identity for decades, but the records went back further than Riley's life. Someone else had started this in 1981, and whoever it was looked exactly like Derek, at least according to the photographs. If this makes your skin crawl, smash that like button. Comment below if you've ever Googled yourself and found someone you shouldn't have, because we're about to find out who the original Derek Holloway really was. Derek Holloway moved to Pinehurst, Virginia in the spring of 2014. He was 29, ambitious, and newly promoted to senior consultant at a mid-sized marketing firm. Pinehurst was a bedroom community 40 minutes outside Richmond, wealthy, wooded, and built around two institutions: a private golf course established in 1952, and the country club that bordered it. Joining the club had been his boss's idea. Networking happens on the 9th hole, he'd said, and Derek, eager to prove himself, agreed. The initiation fee was steep, $12,000, but the connections, he was told, would be worth it. He signed the paperwork in April, attended the new member orientation, and began playing golf every Saturday morning. Derek wasn't particularly good at golf, but he was good at conversation, at remembering names, at building rapport. Within 6 months, he'd secured 3 major clients directly through club introductions. The investment, it seemed, had paid off. Pinehurst Country Club itself was understated in the way only old money can be. No ostentatious fountains or marble columns, just a sprawling Tudor-style clubhouse surrounded by manicured greens and century-old oak trees. The membership was small, selective, and intergenerational. Some families had belonged since the club's founding. There was a waiting list, a vetting process, an unspoken code about who fit in and who didn't. Derek fit in well enough. He was polite, professional, kept his head down. He didn't drink too much at the bar or overstay his welcome at weekend socials. He attended the annual gala in 2014 and 2015, donated to the club's charity auctions, and became a recognizable face. He had no enemies there, no conflicts, no drama. In November 2015, Derek's firm offered him a position leading their new office in Charlottesville, 2 hours west. The salary bump was significant, the opportunity undeniable. He accepted immediately. By December, he was packing his apartment and preparing for the move, and that meant resigning his country club membership. On January 18th, 2016, Derek drove to Pinehurst for the last time. He met with Robert Gaines, the membership director, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd held the position for over 20 years. They sat in Gaines's office, a wood-paneled room filled with framed photographs of past club presidents and championship golf teams. Derek explained the situation. New job, new city, no longer feasible to maintain the membership. Gaines was cordial, understanding. He produced the standard termination forms, walked Derek through the terms. There was a clause about non-refundable dues and a 30-day notice period, but nothing complicated. Derek signed 3 copies, kept one for his records. Gaines shook his hand, wished him well, and mentioned that if Derek ever moved back to the area, the club would welcome his return, pending availability, of course. Derek cleaned out his locker, returned his access card, and left. He didn't look back. For the next 14 months, Derek heard nothing from Pinehurst Country Club. No emails, no calls, no further correspondence. His bank statements showed no charges. His life moved forward. New apartment, new colleagues, new routines. The club became a memory, a footnote in his late 20s, until March 2017. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Standard business mail, forwarded from his old Pinehurst address to his Charlottesville apartment. Derek almost discarded it as junk before noticing the embossed return address. He opened it expecting a promotional mailer, perhaps an invitation to rejoin. Instead, he found a renewal invoice, membership dues for the 2017-2018 year, $4,000, due by April 30th. Derek's first reaction was annoyance, a billing error, obviously. But as he scanned the document, annoyance became confusion. The invoice listed his membership as continuously active since April 1981. It showed his current age as 73, and it included a payment history spanning 36 years, every month paid in full, every transaction processed through accounts at banks Derek had never used. He looked at the member ID number. It matched the number he'd been assigned in 2014, but the dates didn't. Derek set the invoice on the kitchen counter and stared at it for several minutes, trying to construct a rational explanation. A database error, perhaps. Someone's old records merged with his new profile when he joined, or a clerical mistake during the cancellation process, leaving his file active in the system. Except, database errors don't fabricate 36 years of payment history. They don't change birth dates or ages, and they certainly don't align those fabrications with real bank transactions. Derek called the club. The woman who answered identified herself as Lynn, the assistant membership coordinator. Derek explained the situation calmly. He'd received a renewal invoice despite canceling his membership in January 2016. Could someone correct the records? Lynn asked for his member ID number. Derek read it aloud. He heard the click of a keyboard, a pause, then Lynn's voice again, slower now, more careful. Mr. Holloway, I'm showing your membership as active. You're listed as current, with no cancellation on file. Derek's patience thinned. That's impossible. I met with Robert Gaines myself. I signed termination forms. I have a copy in my filing cabinet. Another pause. More typing. I'm not seeing any termination request in our system. According to our records, you've been a continuous member since April 1981. I wasn't born in 1981, Derek said, his voice sharper than he intended. I joined in 2014. I canceled in 2016. Someone made a mistake. Lynn's tone shifted, still professional, but uncertain now. Mr. Holloway, could you hold for a moment? Derek waited. 2 minutes became 5. In the background, he heard muffled voices, footsteps, a door closing. When Lynn returned, her voice was different. Quieter. Mr. Holloway, is it possible for you to come to the club this afternoon? Mr. Gaines would like to speak with you in person. Why can't we resolve this over the phone? I really think it would be better if you came in. Derek glanced at his watch. It was 10:30 a.m. He had a client call at 2, but the drive to Pinehurst would take just over 2 hours. If he left now, he could be there by 1. Handle whatever bureaucratic confusion this was, and return by evening. I'll be there by 1 o'clock, he said. Lynn thanked him, confirmed the appointment, and hung up. Derek pulled the invoice from the counter and examined it again. The payment history was what disturbed him most. It wasn't just a list of dates and amounts. Each entry included a bank name, an account number, partially redacted, and a transaction ID. These weren't placeholders or system-generated codes. They looked real. He opened his laptop and logged into his current bank account, then checked his records from 2014 through early 2016, the period he'd actually been a member. The dues had been charged monthly, always on the first of the month, always the same amount. Everything matched his expectations, but the invoice showed payments dating back to 1981. Derek didn't have access to bank records from before he was born, obviously, but he could check with his parents. His father had opened a savings account in Derek's name when he was a child, a small fund for college. Derek had transferred that money into his own account when he turned 18. Could someone have accessed that old account? He called his mother. She was retired, living in Florida, and answered on the third ring. Derek explained the situation, left out the stranger details, and asked if she remembered the name of the bank where his childhood savings account had been held. First Union, she said after a moment. Why? First Union. Derek scanned the invoice. There, in the 1987-1992 entries, First Union Bank, account ending in 4738. His mother was still talking, asking if everything was okay. Derek assured her it was just a billing mix-up, thanked her, and hung up. He sat motionless in his kitchen, the morning light slanting through the window. Someone had accessed his childhood savings account to pay country club dues before he was old enough to read. Derek grabbed his keys and left for Pinehurst. The drive gave Derek time to think, though thinking only deepened his unease. He tried to construct explanations that didn't veer into the irrational. Identity theft seemed most likely. Someone had stolen his information decades ago, used it to create a membership under his name. But why? What possible benefit would someone gain from impersonating him at a country club 30 years before he'd even joined? And why had the theft only surfaced now, 14 months after he canceled? Derek arrived at Pinehurst Country Club at 12:50 p.m. The grounds looked exactly as he remembered. Immaculate lawns, the clubhouse's dark Tudor facade, the parking lot dotted with luxury sedans. He parked near the entrance and walked inside. The lobby was empty except for Lynn, a woman in her 40s with blonde hair pulled into a neat bun. She recognized him immediately, or seemed to. Her expression was professional but strained, as though she'd spent the last 2 hours preparing for an uncomfortable conversation. "Mr. Holloway, thank you for coming. Mr. Gaines is waiting in his office." She led Derek down a familiar corridor, lined with photographs of club events, past the dining room where he'd once attended a client dinner, and into the administrative wing. Gaines's office door was open. The membership director sat behind his desk, hands folded, his face grave. "Derek," Gaines said, standing. "Please sit." Derek sat. Gaines dismissed Lynn with a nod, and she closed the door behind her. "I'll be direct," Gaines began. "When Lynn pulled up your file this morning, we noticed something unusual. You canceled your membership in January 2016. I remember the meeting. I have the signed forms, but our database shows a second membership under your name, one that predates your 2014 enrollment by 33 years. Derek leaned forward. "A second membership?" "Yes, same name, same birth date, same member ID number, though that shouldn't be possible. Our system generates unique IDs for each new member. It doesn't recycle them. So someone created a fake membership using my information." Gaines hesitated. "That was my first thought. But Derek, the records aren't fake. They're integrated into our entire system. Decades of transaction logs, guest sign-ins, event attendance. This isn't a recent hack or data entry error. This membership has existed in our files since 1981. Derek's pulse quickened. "That's impossible." "I agree, which is why I asked you to come in." Gaines opened a drawer and removed a folder. "I pulled everything we have on the 1981 membership, payment records, correspondence, even some old sign-in sheets." He slid the folder across the desk. Derek opened it. Inside were photocopies of documents spanning decades, membership applications, renewal confirmations, guest logs. All bore his name, all bore his signature, or something close enough to be unsettling. Look at the application from 1981, Gaines said quietly. Derek found it near the bottom of the stack, a standard membership form filled out by hand. Name, Derek Halloway. Birth date, February 12th, 1944. Address, 2847 Laurel Drive, Pinehurst, Virginia. The birth date was wrong, off by exactly 40 years, but the handwriting looked disturbingly similar to Derek's own. The same looping D, the same slant to the lowercase letters. Who lived at that address? Derek asked. We checked. The house was demolished in 1989. Tax records show it was owned by a family named Pritchard until 1985, then sold to a developer. Derek flipped through more documents. A renewal form from 1993. A guest sign-in sheet from 2001, where someone named Derek Halloway had brought a visitor, name illegible, to play golf. A handwritten note from 2008 requesting a new access card after the original was misplaced. Every document was consistent, authentic, embedded in the club's history as if they'd always been there. Where are the cancellation forms I signed? Derek asked. Gaines pulled a second folder from his desk. Here. Derek examined them. His signature. Dated January 18th, 2016. Clear, official, final. So I did cancel. You did. But here's what doesn't make sense. Gaines pointed to a line near the bottom of the cancellation form, a field Derek hadn't paid attention to at the time. Membership start date. It read, April 1981. Derek stared at it. That's wrong. I joined in 2014. According to your 2014 application, yes. But when I process a cancellation, the system auto-fills that field from the member's profile. If it says 1981, that's what our database believed your start date was, even when you joined in 2014. Then your database was already corrupted when I enrolled. Possibly, or Gaines trailed off, clearly uncomfortable, or what? Or someone with your name, your ID, was already in the system, and when you applied in 2014, the system merged your new application with the old profile. Derek felt a chill. You're saying someone with my exact name was a member here for 33 years before I showed up. I'm saying that's what the records suggest. And where is this person now? Gaines met Derek's eyes. That's the question, isn't it? Derek left Gaines's office with a box of photocopied records and a promise that the club would investigate further. But as he drove back to Charlottesville, one detail gnawed at him. The guest log from 2001. He'd skimmed it in Gaines's office, but now, sitting in traffic on I-64, he pulled onto the shoulder and retrieved the photocopy. The entry was dated June 14th, 2001. Derek Halloway had signed in at 9:15 a.m., accompanied by a guest whose name was partially obscured by a coffee stain. But beneath the stain, Derek could make out two letters. Rye. He called his mother again. Do we have any relatives named Richard or Rick? His mother thought for a moment. Your father's brother was named Richard. He passed away in 1979, before you were born. Why? Derek didn't answer directly. Did Uncle Richard ever live in Virginia? Briefly, I think. In the 70s. But Derek, what's this about? He assured her it was nothing, just genealogy curiosity, and hung up. Then he pulled up a genealogy website on his phone and searched for Richard Halloway, Virginia, 1970s. The results were sparse, but one entry matched. Richard Halloway, born 1944, died 1979. Last known address, Pinehurst, Virginia. Derek's uncle had lived in Pinehurst, the same town, the same time frame. But the 1981 membership, 2 years after Richard's death, was in Derek's name, not Richard's. And the birth date on the application, February 12th, 1944, matched Richard's birth year, but not his exact birth date. Derek didn't know his uncle's birthday offhand, but it was close enough to unsettle him. He drove home and spent the evening searching. Census records, obituaries, property deeds, anything that might connect Richard Halloway to Pinehurst Country Club. He found nothing. No membership records, no mentions in club archives, no evidence Richard had ever stepped foot in the place. But at 11 p.m., Derek found something else. an obituary from the Pinehurst Gazette dated March 22nd, 1979. Richard Halloway, age 35, died in a single-car accident on Route 250, survived by his brother, Thomas, Derek's father, and sister-in-law, Carol. No wife, no children. The funeral was held at Pinehurst Memorial Chapel. Derek stared at the date, March 1979. The country club membership in Derek's name didn't begin until April 1981, 2 years later. Who had been using Derek's name for 36 years. The next morning, Derek called the Pinehurst town clerk and requested property records for 2847 Laurel Drive, the address listed on the 1981 membership application. The clerk was helpful, if slightly bemused by the request. She pulled the file and emailed him a scan by noon. The house had been owned by the Pritchard family from 1968 to 1985. Harold and June Pritchard, both deceased. No children listed. The property was sold to a developer in 1985 and demolished in 1989. Current status: vacant lot, owned by the town, zoned for future residential development. No connection to Derek, no connection to Richard. Just a dead end. Derek returned to the photocopied records from the club. He spread them across his dining table and studied them chronologically, looking for patterns. The payments were consistent, never missed, always on time. The signature varied slightly over the years, as anyone's would, but remained recognizable. The guest logs showed intermittent visits: 1987, 1993, 2001, 2008, 2012. And then, in January 2016, they stopped. The last recorded activity for the 1981 membership was January 15th, 2016, 3 days before Derek submitted his cancellation forms. Derek cross-referenced this with his own records. He'd played golf at Pinehurst on January 16th, 2016, his final visit before the cancellation meeting. He remembered the day clearly. Cold, overcast, a quick 9 holes before heading to Gaines's office. Had someone else been at the club that same weekend? Derek called Gaines. "Do you still have security footage from January 2016? Gaines sighed. "We archive footage for 90 days, then delete it. That was over a year ago." "What about sign-in logs, physical logs, not digital?" "We switched to digital only in 2010. Another dead end. But Gaines added, "There is one person you might talk to. James Carver. He's been a groundskeeper here since the 70s. If anyone would remember a longtime member named Derek Halloway, it'd be him." Derek got Carver's contact information and called immediately. The groundskeeper answered on the 5th ring, his voice rough with age. "James Carver." "Mr. Carver, my name is Derek Halloway. I'm trying to track down information about a country club member who may have used my name for several decades. Robert Gaines suggested you might remember him." A long pause, then, "Derek Halloway. Yeah, I remember him." Derek's breath caught. "You do?" "Quiet guy. Kept to himself. Played golf alone, mostly. Never caused trouble." "What did he look like?" Another pause. "Like you, I imagine." "What do you mean?" "I mean," Carver said slowly, "when you joined in 2014, I thought you looked familiar. Real familiar. Figured maybe I'd seen your father or something. People look like their folks." "Did you ever speak to him?" "The earlier Derek." "Once or twice. Didn't say much. Last time I saw him was..." Carver trailed off. "January 2016, I think. Middle of the month. He was walking toward the parking lot, late afternoon. I waved. He didn't wave back. Just got in his car and left. Never saw him again after that." "What kind of car?" "Silver sedan. Honda, maybe. Or Toyota. I'm not good with cars." Derek thanked him and hung up. Then he checked his own records. In January 2016, he'd been driving a silver Honda Accord. Derek couldn't sleep that night. Every rational explanation collapsed under scrutiny. Identity theft didn't account for 36 years of seamless integration into the club's records. Clerical errors didn't explain James Carver's memory of seeing someone who looked exactly like Derek, and coincidence didn't justify the timing, the 1981 membership vanishing the exact day Derek canceled his own. At 2 a.m., Derek made a decision. He needed to see the guest log from 2001 again. the one with the partially obscured name. He'd only glanced at it in Gaines's office, but now it felt crucial. If Rye was Richard, his uncle, then maybe... But Richard died in 1979. He couldn't have been a guest in 2001, unless the dates were wrong, unless the records themselves were unreliable. Derek drove to Pinehurst the next morning, unannounced. He found Gaines in the middle of a board meeting, but pulled him aside. "I need to see the original guest log from 2001, not a photocopy, the actual book." Gaines looked reluctant, but agreed. He led Derek to a storage room in the clubhouse's basement, a dusty space filled with filing cabinets and boxes of old records. Gaines pulled a ledger from a shelf, a cloth-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. He opened it to June 2001 and pointed to the entry. Derek leaned close. The signature was faded but legible. Derek Halloway, 9:15 a.m., and beside it, the guest's name, partially obscured by a stain but clearer than in the photocopy. Riley. Not Richard. Riley. "Do you recognize that name?" Derek asked. Gaines shook his head. "It's not a current member." Derek photographed the page with his phone, thanked Gaines, and left. In his car, he searched for Riley Halloway, Virginia. Dozens of results appeared, too many to narrow down without more context. But then Derek remembered something. He pulled up the obituary for Richard Halloway again and scanned it carefully, survived by his brother Thomas and sister-in-law Carol. No mention of children. But what if Richard had children no one knew about? Derek called his mother for the third time in as many days. "Did Uncle Richard ever have kids?" His mother hesitated. "Not that I know of. Why? Did he ever mention anyone named Riley?" A longer pause. "Derek, where's this coming from?" "Please, Mom. It's important." She sighed. "Richard had a girlfriend in the 70s. I only met her once at a family gathering. She was pregnant at the time, but they never married, and after Richard died, we lost touch with her. I don't know if she kept the baby or what happened. Do you remember her name? God, it's been so long. Angela, maybe? Or Angie?" Derek thanked her and hung up. Then he searched. Angela, Richard Halloway, Virginia, 1970s. One result surfaced. A birth record from 1978. Riley Halloway, born November 3rd, 1978. Mother, Angela Moss. Father, Richard Halloway. Riley would have been 22 in 2001, old enough to be a guest at a country club. Derek called the Pinehurst town clerk again and requested any records associated with Riley Halloway. The clerk found one. A driver's license issued in 1996, address listed as 2847 Laurel Drive, the same address on the 1981 membership application, the house that was demolished in 1989. Derek's hands shook as he processed the information. Riley Halloway, his cousin, a cousin he'd never known existed, had lived at the address listed on the fraudulent membership, and Riley had been a guest at the country club in 2001, signed in by someone named Derek Halloway. But Riley would have been 17 in 1989 when the house was demolished. Where had he gone after that? Derek searched for Riley Halloway, 2000s, Virginia. He found a handful of social media profiles, but none matched the birth date. He found an obituary from 2014, but that Riley Halloway was a woman, unrelated. Then, on the third page of search results, he found a news article from the Pinehurst Gazette, dated January 20th, 2016. Local man missing after apparent disappearance. Riley Halloway, 37, was reported missing by acquaintances after failing to appear for work on January 18th. Halloway, a freelance contractor, was last seen leaving Pinehurst Country Club on the afternoon of January 15th. His vehicle, a silver Honda Accord, was found abandoned near Route 250. Authorities are investigating. Derek read the article 3 times. January 15th, 2016. The last recorded activity for the 1981 membership. 3 days before, Derek canceled. Riley had vanished, and Derek had taken his place. Derek contacted the Pinehurst Police Department and was eventually connected to Detective Sarah Lim, who'd worked Riley Halloway's missing persons case. She agreed to meet him at a diner near the town center. Lim was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and skeptical. Derek explained the situation, the country club records, the shared name, the dates. He showed her the documents, the guest log, the obituary. Lim listened without interrupting, then leaned back in her booth. "Riley Halloway's case is still open," she said. "We never found a body. His car was abandoned, but there was no sign of foul play, no financial activity after January 15th. He just vanished." "Do you know why he was at the country club that day?" Lim shook her head. "We interviewed the staff. No one remembered seeing him. But your timing bothers me. You canceled your membership on the 18th. Riley disappeared on the 15th. And you're saying the records show his membership, or someone's membership under your name, was active until the day he vanished." "That's what the records show." Lim tapped her fingers on the table. "Riley was estranged from his family. No siblings, mother deceased, father died before he was born. He worked odd jobs, kept a low profile. But we did find something unusual in his apartment." She pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos, then showed Derek an image. It was a photograph, faded and creased, showing two men standing outside Pinehurst Country Club. One was clearly Riley, thin, dark-haired, in his 30s. The other was older, maybe in his 70s, but the resemblance was unmistakable. "That's him," Lim said. "That's Riley. But we never identified the other man." Derek stared at the photograph. The older man looked like Derek. Same jawline, same nose, same distant expression, but aged by 40 years. "Who is that?" Derek whispered. Lim met his eyes. "We thought it might be a relative, but when we searched Riley's records, we couldn't find anyone matching the description. No father, no grandfather. Just no one." Derek left the diner with more questions than answers. He returned to Charlottesville and spent weeks trying to piece together the rest, but the trail ended in 2016. Riley Halloway was never found. The country club corrected Derek's records, though Gaines admitted he still didn't understand how the error occurred. The 1981 membership was archived, marked as unresolved, but Derek couldn't let it go. In April 2017, he drove to the vacant lot where 2847 Laurel Drive had once stood. It was overgrown now, weeds overtaking the cracked foundation. He walked the perimeter, searching for something, evidence, answers. He found neither. But as he turned to leave, he noticed a man standing at the edge of the lot, watching him. The man was older, 70s perhaps, with gray hair and a familiar face. Derek's breath caught. The man didn't speak. He simply nodded once, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the tree line. Derek never saw him again. In the years since, Derek has avoided Pinehurst. He changed banks, changed jobs, moved twice. But every year, on January 15th, he receives a renewal invoice from Pinehurst Country Club. Same embossed letterhead, same impossible dates. He doesn't open them anymore, because the truth, he's come to believe, isn't something you find. It's something you recognize when it finds you, and some recognitions, some truths, are better left unopened. Riley Halloway was never found. The older man in the photograph was never identified, and Derek Halloway, now 39, sometimes wonders if the membership he canceled in 2016 was ever really his to cancel, or if he simply stepped into a space someone else vacated, a space that perhaps was always meant for him. The records say his membership began in 1981. Derek was born in 1984, and somewhere in a box of archived files in the basement of Pinehurst Country Club, there's a photograph of 3 men standing outside the clubhouse. Riley, the older stranger, and someone who looks exactly like Derek. The photograph is dated 2014. Derek wasn't at the club that day. At least, he doesn't remember being there. But the records say otherwise, and the records, it seems, are never wrong.